Okay, Ashwini will start.
Okay, Musa, we are live.
Shall we start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Acha, namaskar and good evening from Bombay. First, let me check with Ashwini. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Musa, we are live.
Acha, namaskar on behalf of Kashmiri Pandit Association. I welcome you all to this webinar, which is in memory of January 1990. First, let me check with Ashwini. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Welcome all to this webinar on behalf of Kashmiri Pandits Association Mumbai. I welcome all to this webinar, which is in memory of January 1990. That day will go down as the darkest day in the history of Kashmir and Kashmiri Pandits in particular. It has left deepest possible scars in our collective psyche. A period of mayhem, terror, and torture was unleashed, which culminated into the mass exodus of the community on this day. In a matter of days, the peaceful and patriotic KP community became homeless and refugees in their own country. It's been 32 years since then. Life may have moved on. We may have survived. We may have survived, but we cannot forget this day. We cannot forget the price we have paid and continue to pay. There may have been 6 exoduses of the community before this, but this happened under the Afghan rule, the Sultanate period, Mughal rule, or post-Kabali raid, which was organized by Pakistan after partition. January 1990 happened in free and independent India, democratic India, and secular India. So it's a blot on India as a whole. India, the nation, needs to wake up to the reality. What we are even today, we are witnessing mini Kashmirs mushrooming in some parts of India, be it Bengal, Kerala, UP, one has seen Kairana, Bihar, or even Assam. KPs didn't pick up the gun. We were educated. Education has always been our most precious asset. We were resilient. We reorganized ourselves, rebuilt, and resettled. But all this happened outside Kashmir. And today, we are scattered all over the world. In the process, we suffered a lot. We suffered a loss of address, a loss of language, loss of culture, disconnection with the roots. In short, we lost our identity. We commemorate this day every year as KP Exodus Day, or a Holocaust Day, or a Genocide Day. Different organizations give it different names, but the objective is the same. In the past, KPA Mumbai used to organize a protest to keep the memories alive. But this year, due to prevailing circumstances and the COVID protocol, we have planned this Zoom event. So moving on, I will go over to our first speaker tonight. That is Mr. Shivan Khaibri. Just a brief introduction. He is a retired bank professional, media consultant, former editor of Martand, panelist of Doordarshan Jammu, political commentator, has authored several books, senior journalist, writes for State Times, The Early Times, and Excelsior, and he joins us from Jammu. Welcome, Shivanji, to this webinar. The floor is yours. Ashwini ji, kindly unmute him. Shivanji, all yours.
One sec. I'm just unmuting. You can unmute yourself, Shubhanji.
Hello.
Yeah. We can hear you, sir.
Okay, sir. Namaskar, Maharaj. Sarni Maharaj, Sari Namaskar. You see, it is such a topic which is really in our hearts. And I can say that an oozing wound, you call it exodus, you call it road out, you call it hound out, you call it chase out threateningly, call it by any name, but never ever migration, as a say, so to say, nickname is given, migration, migrants, indigenous, original inhabitants of Kashmir, having a history of 5,300 years of roots, I am afraid has now been reduced to an academic discussion, or at best as symbolic, a ritual annual event in which participate just a few members of the community. I call a spade a spade. Now, call it genocide, of course, akin to, or a Holocaust. It won't be an overstatement. However, coming to the point, as a topic has been compartmentalized, my views are, number one, build up to the exodus. Just this point alone shall require, I suppose, hours and hours to elaborate, not to speak of about other points. For brevity and to spell out the crux only, let me start with the concept of Operation Topak, which was conceived by General Ziaul Haq and launched by Pakistan's ISI to provide covert support and all help to fundamentalist, zealot, and separatist elements in Kashmir, with sole intent to liberate the state of Jammu and Kashmir from India. Now, if we go down the history, prior to that, Operation Gibraltar was launched by General Ayub Khan in 1965 with the same objective of infiltration, using local men, local resources, and support for the purpose. Earlier to that, in 1947, one Colonel Akbar Khan had worked on a plan for armed revolt and jihad inside Kashmir. In fact, jihad had started right in 1947 after the emerging of Pakistan as a separate country. And we know that Kawali attack took place. Now, all such moves were related to and aimed at doing away with Hindus and other non-Muslims. Don't merely call them as Indians under the intoxication of flawed secularism. The basis, the reason, the aim, and the goal had been the same as in respect of Hindus in Pakistan, who were, under well-planned and organized way, decimated from 23% roughly in 1948 to 1.2% as on date. I have been regularly writing about the plight of especially these Hindu girls, minor girls abducted in Pakistan and converted. That's a separate topic. On the other hand, the political period of 1984 to 1989 in India, especially policies towards Jammu and Kashmir, remained such which proved as a fertile ground to Pakistan to make full preparations for launching a terror movement, well planned, funded, trained, cadre indoctrinated, and backed by it and its agencies. A litmus test of how Indian government would behave towards a situation when Kashmiri Pandits would be attacked in a symbolic way was experimented in 1986. When locks were opened in Ayodhya in 1986 at the behest of late Rajiv Gandhi, a rumor was mischievously floated about some Hindus having attacked and beaten some Muslims somewhere in the country. Under that pretext, as many as 500 Kashmiri Pandit houses, temples, and properties were attacked. 50 of them, as per reports, were set on fire on a mass scale. But this strategy was limited to a few villages of Anantnag district only. Now, for perpetrators, it was all success. Prior to that, coup d'etat by Gul Shah, his sacking by Rajiv Gandhi in 1986, signing accord same with Farooq Abdullah, alleged election bungling in 1987, and rigging to keep Muslim United Front out. VP Singh's one-year government of Janata Dal in 1989, 7 months that of Chandrasekhar, etc., became contributory factors. Because political climate was so fragile, so volatile, so undecided, so full of suspense, that it all went in favor of Pakistan going, proceeding, in an honest diabolical way. Here I would like to narrate an incident. When in 1986, Rajiv Gandhi visited Kashmir, near Pratap Park, probably, Srinagar, Farooq Abdullah lifted Rajiv Gandhi's and his hands up, telling the gathering, look, I am a Muslim and Rajiv ji is a Hindu, but our friendship is deep-rooted. Which Rajiv Gandhi objected to and rebutted Farooq on the spot. He said, I am not Hindu. Still Farooq said, despite that, we are friends, sir. In other words, Muslim appeasement, Hindu bashing, and inflicting heaps of humiliation and planting a complex of inferiority in Hindus as an avowed policy of Congress and other pseudo-secular governments at the center proved in the long run. Hello? Hello?
Continue, Mara, we can hear you.
Okay, sir. That's what I want to confirm. Now, this sort of inferiority complex inflicted in, planted in Hindus, see, it was an avowed policy of Congress and other pseudo-secular governments at the center, which proved in the long run, as impliedly illustrating ground for Islamic fundamentalism gaining ascendancy. As I said, that it did not start all of a sudden, but in a sustained, gradual, well-planned, meticulously articulated, professionally arranged, and craftily calculated manner. The trailer was seen in 1986, as I just said, in Anantnag, in many villages, but the real plan started unfolding in 1988. It was when KP, Kashmiri Pandit Pujari, of historically famous Vicharnath temple in Srinagar, downtown Srinagar, Keshavnath Pandit, was brutally killed on December 9, 1988 by a constable from jail.
Some people are not muted. Some people are not
फूला जी
muted.
का फोन ऑन है. फूला जी को बोलिए फोन ऑफ करें.
Second, Mara, second. I think a few people are not muted. I can see. Kindly mute everyone except the speaker. There's a lot of some TV noise is coming.
Exactly. That's
I can see Kusum is not muted.
One sec. You can unmute now yourself. Shubhanji, please. Shubhanji, तो करियो मारा unmute. Shubhanji, तो करियो unmute पानस.
मैंने कर दिया सर.
हाँ, but it's okay.
Please go ahead.
I was saying that then let's come to Exodus 19th January and thereafter as is second topic number 2. As I said, that it did not start all of a sudden, but in a gradual way, in a sustained way, well planned and meticulously articulated way, professionally arranged and craftily calculated manner. The trailer was seen in 1986, but the real plan started unfolding in 1988 when Kashmiri Pandit Pujari of historically famous Vicharnath temple in downtown Srinagar, named as Keshavnath Pandit, was brutally killed on December 9, 1988 by a constable from J&K police who had been sworn to protect him. He killed him with the butt of his gun because he had refused to get converted. Most probably, we don't know. He is an unwept and unsung hero, the first martyr. I have been, wherever I am given a chance to speak, I am telling that he was the first KP victim and therefore the first martyr, followed, of course, by Mr. Tiklal Teplu in September 89, and the list is long. It is to be noted that until the end of 1989, the murder in cold blood of Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir was selective. Thereafter, it was indiscriminate. The most gruesome, though there are, instances innumerable, but I would like to make a mention of the most gruesome, the most spine-chilling, the brutal, inhuman murder that of a 21-year-old girl, Girja Kumari Tikku. She was a laboratory assistant at the Government Higher Secondary School, Trehgaon. On January 11, 1990, after she collected her salary, she was kidnapped by Islamic jihadists, taken to home a Muslim friend who was forced to watch as she was stripped, gang raped, starved for a week, and thereafter placed on a mechanical saw and chopped alive into 2 equal parts. Another person, D.N. Chaudhary, manager, VN Cement Factory, was kidnapped on August 8, 1990 by Hizbul Mujahideen terrorists. His hands were broken with hammers, tongue chopped off, face mutilated and scarred by branding with red hot iron press. Eyeballs were plucked out. 3 days later, his body was dumped in a nearby village. There are numerous instances. Now, we know that in January itself, how thousands of people were taking processions, raising most humiliating, derogatory, and provocative slogans. I mean, if these processions would have been confined to just a few hundreds, we would say that only a few people were so to say international, or they were indulging in such activities which were very much prejudicial to even the interest of human relations. But when you see huge processions one after the other, and in which lethal weapons were brandished, firings were made, say, in the air, and all sorts of provocative slogans were made. When from the minarets of mosques, there were, you see, a call was given that Kashmiri Pandits should leave the valley. When in the vernacular press, threatenings appeared and ultimatums were given that Kashmiri Pandits should leave the valley. The exodus started. Nobody knew where to go. Nobody could lay hands on the huge property which every Kashmiri Pandit had, as per his strength, as per his means. This is, I suppose, after the partition, the greatest human tragedy which has taken place in India. And what pinches me most, and what I have been writing about, is that the attitude of parties like Communist Party of India, like Congress Party, like Samajwadi Party, like parties like DMK, other parties, like all other so-called secular parties, they remained mum. Nobody supported us. Even now, if there are some instances, you can see, I mean, throughout the globe, Now the new phrase have been coined, that there is say a wave in India of intolerance towards minorities and all other things. But when we were hounded out, lock, stock, and barrel, when we were chased out, when we were selectively killed, not only that, even when massacres took place in Wandahama in 1998, 25th January, when 26 Kashmiri Pandits were killed, only one boy was going to hide himself, and he was saved. And terrorists were searching frantically for him because they wanted to wipe out the last sign of Kashmiri Pandits in that village. I am very much shocked when I recall that when the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Gujral, on a visit to Kashmir, accompanied by Farooq Abdullah, he went to Gulmarg to watch winter sports. Just had he didn't have a courtesy to go to the village and look for himself what had happened, how an entire village had been wiped out of Kashmiri Pandits. Now, in 2003, Nadi Marg massacre, where the police was conspicuously absent from the post, when police constables were conspicuously absent from the post, where 24 Kashmiri Pandits were killed. We have seen that boy, hardly 2 years old, less than 2 years old, whose one eye is open and another eye is shut, and how many bullets were pumped into his head in the upper parts of the body of all the victims on those massacres. There was no hue and cry from the secular lobby. Everybody remained silent. I remember when I was those days serving in Kashmir, I was serving in Srinagar and staying put in a hotel under security. I volunteered that we should go and at least perform last rites of these people. I wanted some help, but it didn't come. I mean, when Mufti Said, the then Chief Minister, visited that place along with his daughter, he didn't utter a single word against Pakistan, excepting saying, "Baat goli se nahi, boli se hogi." I mean, to this extent was the apathy, to this extent was indifference shown to a tragedy like Nadi Marg massacre of Kashmiri Pandits. How can we forget that? We cannot forget that. The question is, now, 32 years on, we are living a life of exile in our own country. The paradox is, the tragedy is that there is no white paper issued by any of the governments so far on such a massive human tragedy. The question is that even in 1995, in Burkina Faso, Narasimha Rao says that sky is the limit and we will grant any amount of any quantum of autonomy to Jammu and Kashmir. Even at that time, it was decided that pre-1953 position will be restored in Jammu and Kashmir. What I mean to say is that these governments, of course, until 2014, and now in 2019, when we saw at least two big decisions which matter having been taken by the present government. Every government was more concerned about how to pamper and how to appease Kashmiri people, the Kashmiri leadership. But our problems remained as they are. The tag given to us as migrants is so much insulting. I have been writing numerously about it, that at least let us be classified, described as internally displaced. We are not being classified. We are not being described as internally displaced. It is not a question of how exodus will be reversed. It is not the question of how that a tremendous loss of property will be reversed. It is the question of, have you recognized our exodus? Has our exile been recognized? Have we been classified as internally displaced? If 32 years is a short period for all these things, I am afraid perhaps it will never be done. It will never be addressed. Now, the concluding part of the topic is present status and what should we do? Well, dear friends, esteemed friends, we at the moment, of course, have many organizations which have been working relentlessly to bring home the factual position in respect of our exodus, our hounding out from Kashmir, and the present position. But the fact remains that one generation is already gone. Now we are the second generation. We are also quite unspecified and unsure when shall the day come when we will regain our paradise, when we will again go back to our roots. That remains central to each and every Kashmiri Pandit's psyche and aspirations. But much more has got to be done. Let us not trivialize this exodus. Let us not keep it confined to ourselves, within ourselves. This is the time, this is the era when we have to give vent to our feelings more openly than we do at present. How are we commemorating this 19th January? I'm afraid we are just doing it symbolically, whether it is in Jammu, main place where there is the bulk of Kashmiri Pandit as living in an exiled life, in an exiled way. I once wrote perhaps in Naad or Kosher Samachar, 19 on a 19th January. We conversed outside the Raj Bhavan. I was also one of the participants at that time. And I counted, we were just 19 people. What prevented us from converging there in at least thousands to show our solidarity, to show our anger, to show that our wounds are oozing? So I wrote an article, that was a critical analysis of how we are taking this. We may not forget this thing. We have to keep our wound oozing. We have to keep our wound alive. We have to educate and acquaint our younger generation, our say acquainted with all the facts, what happened to us. At least we have to teach them, not only as Kimusab started from Afghan rule and other things, the past history, but the present history right from 1947 till date. That's all. I have taken my 10 minutes. More than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shivanji. It was so nice. You took us back to Operation Gibraltar and the Zia Doctrine and the policies of state, especially J&K, which worked in favor of what happened, and the trailer which happened in 1986, and then how it unfolded in 1988. Also reminded of those gruesome massacres of Vandahama and Nandimag. So nice of you. It has taken us back to all those years.
Thank you.
However hard we may try, we can't forget them.
That's right.
With that, we move to the next speaker for today. I would now briefly introduce Raj Nehru. He is a veteran in human capital management with more than 2 decades of work experience in different organizations, starting with Indian Army and in the corporate world in different industries. He is the youngest founding vice chancellor in the country, a vice chancellor of Shri Vishwakarma Skill University, with additional responsibility as vice chancellor of J.C. Bose University of Science and Technology. He is director on the board of Haryana State Electronic Development Corporation, member of formation of Implementation Plan for National Education Policy NEP 2020, mission director Haryana Skill Development Mission, on board and part of various state government committees on education, skill development, etc. A recipient of many honors and awards, he is also an active philanthropist. A warm welcome to Raj Nehru, sir. The floor is yours. Kindly start.
Namaskar. Namaskar, Mara. Am I audible?
Namaskar. Yes, you are.
Okay. Namaskar. And once again, Kimusab, Kashmiri Pandit Association, Mumbai. Shukriya. Thank you for giving this opportunity to speak on in this forum. I'm glad that we have been able to hear Khabri Sahab. He gave a very detailed presentation on some of the very important incidents of the past, and I'm also happy to have Ashish ji also on this forum. I think he's a very veteran writer. We have read him a couple of times, so thank you, and all the august audience. So let me begin. I think I was thinking how I should start, because given that 19th has already passed, but we are talking about 19th genocide today. So to me, 19th January has a remembrance, but it also needs to be reminded to the entire nation, country, that it's not the 19th January which happened on 19th January. 19th January has its roots deeper in the past. Why? I will not go beyond 1947, but it's very important for people to understand that the roots are even deeper than 47. And those roots can be found somewhere around the world when you had colonials being fought by the Muslim Brotherhood kind of a thing, when the Wahhabism was born, and when it was getting exported to other parts of the world. So the roots can be found far, far deeper, how all these things have begun in the past. But I will restrict myself to 1947, because that's a flashpoint when things actually started changing. You see, when we see the country getting divided between two states, Pakistan was born and India, another nation was born. We clearly saw that Pakistan was born on the religious lines of Islam. Islam was the faith on the grounds of which that country was born. And on the other side, the country decided to stay secular.
Secular.
Now, the country which decided to stay secular, their leaders very clearly knew this, that there is a new nation which has been born out of the country like India, which had a thousands-year-old history of culture and heritage, still they let a country like Pakistan to take birth on the tenets of a fundamentalistic religion. They forgot this when they were dealing the same thing with Kashmir. They did not recognize the fact that they had very recently handled a partition of the country on the basis of religion, but they allowed that majoritarian Muslim state to evolve within the dominion of India. And that is when the problem got rooted for Kashmiri Pandits. They did not had the foresight to recognize that what happened to Pakistan, to India by creating Pakistan in 1947, the same roots they were sowing themselves by allowing Jammu Kashmir to be in the hands of a majoritarian community, despite at that time you had a different set of rulers in Jammu and Kashmir whom they ignored, bypassed, and let a Muslim hegemony get evolved in this region. And that is when a message went to the entire world that, see, on the one side, Pakistan was clearly created and it was snatched from India. And in the Naya Bharat, the thousands of Muslims who preferred to stay by one way or the other way, and the way Kashmir got created. In this Naya Bharat, the new doctrine that came up was, many of you might have heard, the doctrine of 1,000 wars with India. And with that doctrine of 1,000 wars, there was another doctrine which later Ziaul Haq brought out. He said, 1,000 cuts to bleed India. Our leaders continuously forgot that. Yes. They forgot it. And 19th January is the culmination of those all mistakes committed since 47, ignored by all the political and social classes. And what we saw on 19th January is something which did not happen on 19th January. The preparation for 19th January happened since 1947. Now, you see, since 1947 and what was happening in the global world, there were many doctrines that were thrown around. One of the doctrines thrown around was Ghazwa-e-Hind. And the entire Muslim population was nurtured on the philosophy of Ghazwa-e-Hind. The another philosophy was Ghaznavi's Fauj, Ghaznavi's army, Mahmud Ghaznavi, who was called by that hegemony. Then you had Qasim's army, and then you had Muslims talking about, these radicals talking about the Sindh victory, and then Babari Fauj coming to India. And all these were nurtured within the country. And what happened to the other class within the country? You had own people whom I call inclusive political culture class people. They became completely confused. The larger population, and some were confused by our own political class, while as the rest of them were completely confused, and they started believing the another philosophy. क्योंकि दो तरह के लोग खड़े हो गए. एक वो लोग थे, those converts within the Muslim community who believed violently in the violence, and those Muslims who believed in the silence. So violence believe करने वाले, they started killing, or silence में believe करने वाले, they started creating such narratives कि साहब जुल्म हो गया हमारे साथ तो victim they started projecting the entire community as a victim. And ये जो सारा political class था, ये जो inclusive political class था India के अंदर, they started getting confused, and that is when you will see so much of secularistic support started coming to Kashmir. And in that process, it was communicated to the nation कि भाई majoritarian की जगह पे minoritarian जो community है within the country, उसको support करना बहुत जरूरी है. और वो जो एक class mindset इंडिया में बना, उस mindset को कश्मीर के अंदर सीड किया गया. और जिसने slowly, अगर आप there are so many references I have been going through. There is Shamil Bar, उसने एक बड़ी अच्छी बुक लिखी है Sources of Islamic Terrorism. एक Espirito John है, उन्होंने लिखा है जिहाद होली और अनहोली. They have done a genesis on how these kind of situations have evolved not only in India but in the other parts of the world. और ऐसा ही एक स्कॉलर है वालिद फारसी, उन्होंने भी अपने लेखों में लिखा है डिफरेंट डायमेंशंस, कैसे इन डिफरेंट डायमेंशंस के आधार पर उन्होंने इस मुस्लिम रेडिकलाइजेशन को दुनिया भर में पॉपुलराइज किया, जिसमें इकोनॉमिक जिहाद के थ्रू, आइडियोलॉजिकल जिहाद के थ्रू, पॉलिटिकल जिहाद के थ्रू, इंटेलेक्चुअल जिहाद के थ्रू या सबवर्सिव और डिप्लोमेटिक जिहाद के थ्रू, ये 6 डायमेंशंस में वो इसको बांटते हैं कि कैसे इन्होंने इन डायमेंशंस के थ्रू पूरी दुनिया के अंदर अपने आप को खड़ा किया और लोगों को मारा भी, कत्लेआम भी किया और दूसरे साइड से डिप्लोमेटिक तरीके से उनको जस्टिफाई भी करना शुरू किया. अब इसमें डेप्थ में मैं नहीं जाऊंगा, लेकिन सवाल ये आज है कि ऐसी रेडिकलाइज सोसाइटी जहां पे लोग ये बिलीव करें कि वायलेंस इज जस्टिफाइड, जो साइलेंट और वायलेंट कम्युनिटी जहां एग्जिस्ट करती हो, वेयर वन हु डायरेक्टली डज द वायलेंस, वन हु इनडायरेक्टली डज इट by supporting them, by providing them different type of supports, and the third class, one who silently endorses it. ऐसी radicalized सोसाइटी के अंदर एक ऐसी सोसाइटी का, एक ऐसे कम्युनिटी का जो नॉन वायलेंट कम्युनिटी है, कैसे सरवाइव कर सकती है? तो ये जो आज ये सोसाइटी, जो माशरा बन गया है कश्मीर के अंदर, जम्मू कश्मीर के अंदर, मैं जम्मू कश्मीर तक ही इसको सीमित रखूंगा, यहाँ की जो कलेक्टिव विजडम है वो एक प्रकार के पागलपन का शिकार हो गई है. और जब एक समाज की, एक माशरे की कलेक्टिव विजडम पागलपन का शिकार हो जाए, तो ऐसे माशरे के अंदर एक पीस लविंग कम्युनिटी कैसे सरवाइव कर सकती है? तो सबसे बड़ा सवाल आज ये है कश्मीरी हिंदू और कश्मीरी पंडित के लिए कि जिस रेडिकलाइज सोसाइटी में आज हम वापस जाने की बात करते हैं, उस रेडिकलाइज सोसाइटी में हम कैसे सरवाइव करेंगे, एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन है. मैं इसको कंक्लूजन की ओर जब ले जाऊंगा, तो मुझे लगता है आज के इस दिन में हमें 4 प्रश्न पूछने चाहिए, अपने आप से भी पूछने चाहिए, समाज से भी पूछने चाहिए, सरकार से भी पूछने चाहिए कि सबसे बड़ी बात पिछले 32 साल में इस समाज को, पहला जो प्रश्न है मेरा, कि जो हमारे साथ हुआ आज तक इसके ऊपर कोई इंक्वायरी नहीं हुई, कोई ट्रुथ कमीशन सेट नहीं हुआ, कभी किसी ने ये नहीं पूछने की कोशिश की गई कि भाई इतने हजारों कश्मीरी पंडितों का नरसंहार हुआ, रेप हुआ, किलिंग्स हुई, मर्डर्स हुए, घरों को जला दिया गया, इनके जो परपेट्रेटर्स थे, इनके जो लोग थे जिन्होंने ये किलिंग की, मर्डर्स किए, रेप्स किए, उनको जस्टिस कब मिलेगा? इन कश्मीरी पंडितों को कब इन लोगों को सजा मिलेगी? 32 साल में इस प्रश्न का उत्तर किसी ने नहीं दिया. आज भी मेरा ये प्रश्न वहीं का वहीं रहता है इस 32 साल के बाद, जब हम इस दिन के बाद चर्चा करते हैं. दूसरा मेरा जो प्रश्न है, हाउ कैन कश्मीरी पंडित कम्युनिटी and their identity survive as a distinct and distinguished cultural group? हमारी एक सभ्यता है अपनी कश्मीर के अंदर, हमारा एक एथॉस है, हमारी एथनिसिटी है, हमारे कुछ प्रैक्टिसेस हैं. इन प्रैक्टिसेस को कैसे सरवाइव किया जाएगा? ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा प्रश्न है समाज के लिए, मेरे व्यक्तिगत के लिए और मेरे देश की सरकार के लिए भी, कि आप इस एथनिसिटी को कैसे प्रोटेक्ट करोगे. तीसरा मेरा जो प्रश्न है वो है कि what does a real future look like in which Kashmiri Pandits might return to their homes in the valley? इस प्रश्न का उत्तर किसी के पास नहीं है. इस प्रश्न के ऊपर बहुत सारे सॉल्यूशंस लोग देते हैं, लेकिन आज भी किसी के पास, इवन सरकार के पास भी इसकी क्लैरिटी नहीं है, और होगी भी नहीं, क्योंकि सरकार ने कभी पॉजिटिवली इस कम्युनिटी के थॉट प्रोसेस को एंगेज ही नहीं किया. तो मुझे लगता है कि ये एक बहुत बड़ा प्रश्न चिन्ह आज 19 जनवरी के दिन जब हम अपनी कम्युनिटी के हॉलोकॉस्ट को याद करते हैं, मुझे लगता है कि ये प्रश्नों का उत्तर देना बहुत जरूरी है. मैं आज के दिन में मैसेज मेरी कम्युनिटी को ये है कि ये तो 32 साल हमने देख लिए, वी हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू गेट जस्टिस फ्रॉम द अदर साइड, बट ये बड़ी रेजिलिएंट कम्युनिटी है, ये गिरती है और ये उठती भी है। और ये आज की बात नहीं है, पिछले 700 सालों में भी हम अगर देखेंगे, हम गिरे भी हैं, उठे भी हैं। तो मेरा ये कहना है that as a community we have always lived bravely in the times of adversities, and we have never let difficulties become obstacle for our continuous pursuits to progress. So we must continue with them, with them. These adversities, these situations may not go. मेरा व्यक्तिगत मानना ये है कि that today's day should serve as a purpose to understand and recognize our own fears, जिन fears के कारण से कभी कभी हम बड़े critical और vocal हो जाते हैं, और इन fears को कैसे हम confront करें और कैसे इन्हीं fears को अपनी strength बना के हम आगे चलें. Instead of only complaining, we must teach our children to celebrate these uncertain situations of today as an opportunity and help them to expand themselves and learn to live and manage the change with courage and dignity. वो किसी भी फील्ड में जाएं, हम एनकरेज करें, वो ग्रो करें. इजराइल को देखिए आप, यहूदियों को देखिए, कितने हजार सालों तक वो लड़ते रहे, लेकिन उन्होंने अपनी इंटेलेक्चुअल परस्यूट्स को, एजुकेशनल परस्यूट्स को नहीं छोड़ा. जहां गए वहां कुछ न कुछ डेवलप किया. दुनिया की आज बड़ी से बड़ी इकोनॉमी आप यूएस में देखोगे तो इजरायली या यहूदियों के द्वारा खड़ी की है. किसी भी मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी को आप देख लो, यहूदी ने खड़ा किया होगा. तो मेरा ये कहना है आज की डेट में समाज को कि इन परस्यूट्स को हम ना छोड़ें. जिस फील्ड में भी हम घुसते हैं, उस फील्ड में हम अपनी पोटेंशियलिटीज को मैक्सिमम मुकाम तक पहुंचाएं, और साथ साथ में ये युद्ध भी लड़ते रहें अपनी आइडेंटिटी के लिए, अपने रिटर्न के लिए, अपनी रिहेबिलिटेशन के लिए और अपने एम्पावरमेंट के लिए इस देश के अंदर. धन्यवाद.
Thank you very much, Raj sir. So nice of you. You took us back to the genesis of the problem, starting from Wahhabism and export of the same to 1947 and the birth of Pakistan on religious lines, the doctrines of Thousand Cuts and the doctrines of Ghazwa-e-Hind, various facets of jihad, but ending message was so nice, which means a lot, which is come what may, you have to think on positive lines. I really like that, and thanks a lot once again. Okay, friends, with that we move to our next part. Our next speaker participant for today's session is Mr. Ashish Kaul. I'll quickly introduce him. Ashish worked as Group Executive Vice President Zee Network, Vice President Hinduja Group, Films and Media Business, Country Manager Bajaj Herbals, and COO of News 24 and Bag Films, also as CEO of Prakash Jha Films. Overall, 26 years in global leadership across media, entertainment, and FMCG sectors. Author of 3 best-selling books, Dida, the Warrior Queen of Kashmir, Refugee Camp, and Rakht Gulab. Producer, director of Stree Desh, The Forgotten Legendary Women of Kashmir, recipient of various prestigious awards in the field of business, leadership, and corporate affairs, and thought leadership. He is an active columnist for Rights for India Today, The Hindu, Hindustan Times, Business Standard, Amar Ujala, Daily Excelsior, and Fortune magazine. Particularly of interest for today's discussion are some articles which Ashish ji has, one second, I have to add some. Ashish ji has published in Business World. It was also published in Amar Ujala, Daily Excelsior, and Vitasta of KP Sabha, Kolkata. In these, he has outlined his vision for KPs going forward. So I have asked him to focus, I have requested him to focus on that part, and therefore he will not be speaking a monologue. We will rather have a conversation with him on his vision. First and foremost, a very warm welcome to you, Ashish ji.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You are there. Namaskar and warm welcome. So I have sort of, to be part of this conversation, I have prepared a few questions. So let's start. I think you can, based on your article only, so you can explain for the information of all.
Sure.
In your writings, you have proposed a structured vision for a restoration, preservation, and development of KP civilization. Can you throw some light on it, and what are the broad contours which you take up are part of it?
Yes, Mara. Before I begin, it was so enlightening to hear all the seniors here, and I'll also take a moment to express my deepest condolences to Raji and his family. He recently lost a pillar of his family. These are irreparable losses. All I can say, sir, is may God give you strength to go through this. We are all with you, and I know you had a very special relationship with him. And that's not going to go away, and he's always going to be around. And I know you are a brave man, and the way you've handled it. I saw those last moments when you were with your father. It's people should take a lesson from that, sir. And to my Sabha, it's been enlightening as always to hear my elders. And while our elders, the kind of work that our elders have done in last 32 years is unparalleled in the world history. Now, my focus has always been how do you move forward, because we have had moot points of Ghar Wapsi, culture, preservation. All these are very important parts of any community's existence. If we look around world communities, the micro communities that have been snubbed to the ground, razed to the ground, and from that they have come back. Sindhis are ideal example, even Sardars to some extent, and you have Parsis here in Bombay. So socio-cultural preservation is the key for the society to remain relevant. अगर कश्मीरी पंडित्स को relevant रहना है, तो हमारा socio-cultural जो ecosystem है, उसको relevant रहना बहुत जरूरी है. सबसे important चीज, we are not inching, but we are racing towards socio-cultural extinction. And this is a part of my research also. Probably in next 50 years, I will know Raji is a Kashmiri Pandit, and he will know that being a call, I am a Kashmiri Pandit, my children or my children's children, they will know probably we are Kashmiri Pandits. But what does being a Kashmiri Pandit mean? That is going to go out of the equation. We will remain Kashmiri Pandits by the way of our titles, by the way of our surnames alone. Now, which is the biggest worry that I have, that after we have, as Khabri Saab mentioned, that we have already lost, or probably on the verge of losing one generation that was relevant to what happened. Probably now the second generation is the generation which is in the age group of, let's say, 60 to 70, 75. And then, there are people like us who probably are neither here nor there. And then our children, who in any case do not know anything about Kashmir. For them, Kashmir is a fancy word that they hear from their parents. So first of all, I think going forward, what we need is investment in creating a socio-cultural infrastructure. Now, what will it do? One, this socio-cultural infrastructure will work towards formally, not within these numerous social groups that we have. These are not repositories. You see the difference between numerous Kashmiri Pandit groups and a formal group is that a formal group is a repository. It's a bank. It's a knowledge bank. We have none. Our knowledge, my worry is with my elders, when they move into the other realm, all this knowledge, this wisdom, this socio-cultural uniqueness that our community has will also be lost forever. So we need to preserve our language. We need to preserve our culture. Now, this, everybody knows that we need to. There is no, it's a no-brainer. But how? Do we have any formal repository where we can bank this and people can come and then bask in that knowledge, take that knowledge forward, further that knowledge? We don't have that. So we need some kind of a, for the lack of any other word, perhaps we need a university. We need some kind of a university which will focus on the uniqueness of Kashmiri Pandit civilization. I've always emphasized on the word civilization. We are world's most ancient and continuously progressed civilization in the world. I mean, our civilization, if you go by Nilmat Puran, then we are the oldest documented, continuously written about history in the world. I mean, our history starts from the time when Egypt did not even have pyramids. So it is as old as that. But then what now? So that is one. Then today we have seen government of India, they put so much of importance to various languages, skill development, where I feel Rajji is going to be very important going forward. And the kind of work that Rajji is already doing is how do you preserve our language? You see, today the problem is, now, for example, we live in Bombay. Now, if my child today goes into the school and I encourage her to speak Kashmiri, the problem is the school comes back and complains to me that your child speaks in Kashmiri, or the child, they even have today, English speaking schools have a problem even if a child speaks in Hindi. So where will Kashmiri survive? There needs to be a formal policy, and Kashmiri, for Kashmiris, if nothing, should be allowed, should be encouraged in educational institutions. One, now what we have done with Urdu, you take any university, sir, the kind of money that is being spent on preservation of Urdu, it is huge. Crores and crores of rupees are spent in preservation of Urdu. Who is worried about Kashmiri language? The fact also is between all of us, we need to accept that we are also responsible. What kind of a pride do we have in Kashmiri language? Do our children do that? Kashmiri ko aaj Kashmiri bolte hue sharam aati hai. He feels inferior. We neither encourage nor do we indulge in Kashmiri at all. So, we need to create a formal infrastructure which will first of all preserve for posterity, because you see, we are at the crossroads. We are not in our natural habitat. अगर हम कश्मीर में ही रह रहे होते, so all of this would not have mattered. अगर हम जम्मू में ही रह रहे होते, all of this still may not have mattered. But हम लोग majority अब जम्मू कश्मीर अपने natural habitat से बाहर हैं. Therefore, it is extremely important for us to create a formal infrastructure, to invest in creation of a formal infrastructure which will bank, which will preserve, and which will further and develop our unique culture. हमारे फेस्टिवल्स खत्म हो गए. आज देखिए, आज एक नॉर्मल कश्मीरी फैमिली डोसा खाती है, वो साग नहीं खाती, वो नूडल्स खाती है, वो गणेश उत्सव मनाती है, वो नवरात्रि मनाती है, पर उसको खिचवावस नहीं पता होता, वो पोस्ट से उसको पता चलता है. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज, जो जहां जहां पे है, अगर कश्मीरी पंडित एक गुजरात में है, उसके कल्चर, उसकी लाइफ में से कश्मीरियत को धीरे धीरे गुजराती इन्फ्लुएंस रिप्लेस कर रहा है. जो कश्मीरी महाराष्ट्र में रह रहे हैं, धीरे धीरे उनके कल्चर को महाराष्ट्रियन कल्चर धीरे धीरे रिप्लेस करेगा. एंड दिस इज द यूनिवर्सल ट्रूथ. सो दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सेकेंड इज, उसके बाद हमारे में एक वी आर इंटेलेक्चुअल्स. आई मीन, इट्स अगेन अ नो ब्रेनर. लेकिन अब हम इस लॉरेल को पे रेस्ट नहीं कर सकते. वो एक दौर था जब हमारी विजडम हमको साबित नहीं करनी पड़ती थी. अब दौर बदल गया, जमाना बदल गया. Now we have to fight the way a Sindhi does, or a Sardar does, or any other micro community in the world does. No matter, I have been talking about this at various forums, that Kashmiri Pandits need to have a political foothold in the system. You have no representation where it matters. We have no foothold where it matters. We have become political fodder for various parties, जो हमको अपने मतलब के लिए इस्तेमाल करते हैं और आगे बढ़ जाते हैं और हमारे को वो लॉलीपॉप पकड़ा देते हैं. We are ideally one of those cartoons जो So Sorry आता है इंडिया टुडे पे. वो फाइनल उसका वो होता है कि वो पॉलिटिशियन आता है, वो उसका वोट ले लेता है, उसके हाथ में एक लॉलीपॉप पकड़ा देता है कि ये लो तुम्हारे लिए मैं ये करूंगा, जो कभी होता नहीं है. We are no different. This is the fact. Now, my vision is that political vision is that हमारे यहाँ we already have done the groundwork. हमारे यहाँ numerous associations हैं, हर जगहों पे associations हैं. That's the good part. That's the good beginning. Now, what we should do is we should have all these associations post a nominee into a city-wise association, a region-wise association based on, let's say, on an election basis. And overall, we should have a Politburo kind of a thing. Let's learn from what Marxists do. Let us have a elected national body, और हमारे जो elders हैं, let them create an agenda for this, for our party, कि हमारे लिए ये एजेंडा है कि politically we need to get a law passed कि कश्मीरी लैंग्वेज के लिए क्या किया जा सकता है, कश्मीरी हिंदू फेस्टिवल्स के लिए, सोशियो इकोनॉमिक कल्चर के लिए उसको कैसे किया जा सकता है. सी एक होता है इनके बारे में बातें करना, बातें करने में तो हम माहिर हैं, हम लोग कर ही रहे हैं, हम बातें तो कर ही रहे हैं, लेकिन इससे होगा कुछ नहीं. 32 साल में कुछ नहीं हुआ, 3200 साल में भी कुछ नहीं होगा unless certain laws are formed. जैसे खैबरी साहब ने भी बोला, राज नेहरू जी ने भी बोला, I have also been talking about that. कोई नहीं कर रहा. क्या हमारी कम्युनिटी में जजेस नहीं है? क्या हमारी कम्युनिटी ने लॉयर्स प्रोड्यूस नहीं किए? What stops us from having a few retired judges? और ये जो मैं रिपोजिटरी की बात कर रहा हूं, let us start documented. क्या हमने कभी is there a common knowledge bank जहां पे मैं जाके देख सकूं कि ये 500 लोगों को शहीद किया गया आतंकवादियों ने, इनकी डिटेल्स ये हैं, और क्या हम टेस्टिमनी ले सकते हैं? Let us learn from. आज देखिए, जूइश मेरे ख्याल से परसिक्यूशन करीब सबसे पुराना परसिक्यूशन हो गया, लेकिन आज एक कश्मीरी को जूइश परसिक्यूशन के बारे में ज्यादा पता होगा, अपने परसिक्यूशन के बारे में कम पता होगा. Which is where they have been wise. They have documented everything. They work towards creating an economic infrastructure, एक सोशियो कल्चरल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर उन्होंने क्रिएट किया कि उनको कोई भूले नहीं. We will not forget, we will not forgive. ये हमको जूस से सीखना चाहिए, सिंधियों से सीखना चाहिए कि उन्होंने कैसे किया. We need to do that. And let us create a polit bureau जहां पे हमारे सीनियर्स एक एजेंडा सेट करेंगे कि भाई एक हम अगर नॉमिनी भेजते हैं और हमें ये कश्मीर फिक्सेशन से बाहर आ जाना चाहिए. ये जो हम भागते हैं बार बार कि हमको वहां पे सीट दो, अरे आपको अगर कोई वहां सीट देगा भी, आई थिंक वी आर वाइज इनफ टू एक्सेप्ट एंड अंडरस्टैंड वी आर अनवांटेड इन द वैली. दैट चैप्टर इज ओवर. ये अब हमारा एक फिक्सेशन है. Instead of wasting our efforts in getting back our foothold in the political system of the valley, why can we not put our foot where it matters? For example, in Delhi, हमारी काफी सारी community दिल्ली में है. Can we not field a candidate from Delhi? Can we not field a candidate from Bangalore, from Mumbai, from Gujarat, or from these areas? हम लोग घूम फिर के वापस कश्मीरी क्यों जाना चाह रहे हैं जहां पे ना हमको कोई सपोर्ट करेगा, ना हमारी कोई रेलेवेंसी है, ना हम यूनिफाइड वोट करते हैं. So let us create a polit bureau, set an agenda. वो एजेंडा हम किसी पॉलिटिशियन को देते हैं हमारी कम्युनिटी के, भाई तुम्हारा अपना कोई पर्सनल एजेंडा नहीं हो सकता. You are the representative of Kashmiri Pandit community. Now go back to the legal corridors of assemblies, to the parliament, and then frame laws there. Work towards creating laws. जब तक कानून नहीं होगा, ये देश लॉलीपॉप देने में, हमारे देश का जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, अनफॉर्चुनेटली द वे वोटिंग पैटर्न वर्क्स, यहाँ लॉलीपॉप मिलता है. हमको 32 साल से लॉलीपॉप ही मिला, और कुछ मिला नहीं, और आगे भी कुछ नहीं मिलेगा. सो दीज थिंग्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. और ये जो कश्मीर, यू कैन टेक मी अवे फ्रॉम कश्मीर बट यू कांट टेक कश्मीर आउट ऑफ मी, वो अपनी जगह पे है. वी हैव टू कीप अप द रेटोरिक, बट वी मस्ट एक्सेप्ट एंड वी मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड. एंड द फैक्ट इज we are unwanted in the valley. So what will happen? We will धीरे धीरे, हमारे बच्चे, हम सब के बच्चे हैं. I have a child who says, you know, why are we worried about Kashmir? You know, there are people dying there. When we are not welcome, why are we worried about that? But can that drive us? No. So there have to be realistic, जो हमें framework करना है. I will summarize the framework again. One, we need to create a formal repository, a formal infrastructure for socio-cultural preservation of the uniqueness of our community. That is one. It has to be formally. ये सब ये self help groups में नहीं होगा, ये ऐसे नहीं, possible नहीं होगा. आज हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, क्या हम कश्मीरी में बात कर रहे हैं? नहीं बात कर रहे हैं. हम हिंदी में बात कर रहे हैं, हम इंग्लिश में बात कर रहे हैं. इसका एक एडवांटेज भी है. The world has to know. हम कश्मीरी में ही बात करते रहेंगे तो दुनिया को in any case पता नहीं चलेगा. We are an impervious society. But should that come at the cost of our culture? Now, you know, I was talking to you the other day, sir. I've spent a lot of time with some of the wealthiest and the most influential families in the world. Sindhi families is one of them. Where I was the business head for one of the largest global conglomerate that there is. Even now, it has been 200 years that their family migrated out of Sindh. Every time the family is together, they talk in Sindhi, their children talk in Sindhi, they eat together, they eat the same food, they don't even order food from outside. No matter what they have to do, they will speak in their language. they may fire 20 people from other communities, but a Sindhi will never lose their job. They will create a company to keep a Sindhi in job. That's how we need to do it. Secondly, yes, कश्मीर घर वापसी ये हमारे को ड्राइव करता है, करता रहेगा. बाकी कम्युनिटीज में और हमारी कम्युनिटीज में बड़ा फर्क है कि अगर सिंधी चले गए, अब वो दूसरा देश हो गया. बाकियों के लिए वो देश पराये हो गए. हम तो अपने देश में विस्थापित हो गए. एज वी ऑल नो, इस देश के माथे पे इससे बड़ा शायद कलंक दुनिया में कहीं नहीं है कि अपने देश में लोग रेफ्यूजी हो गए. और जुडिशियल, मुझे लगता है कि लीगल फ्रेमवर्क बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. हम कितनी भी बातें करें, जब तक लीगली उसको सपोर्ट नहीं किया जाएगा. आई रिसेंटली वाज ऑन अ डिस्कोर्स वेयर जो हमारी जमीन जायदादों के इश्यू थे, सरकार ने कह दिया, सरकार ने हमको लॉलीपॉप दे दिया कि वी विल रिटर्न. इट इज की एक लॉलीपॉप देने, प्रैक्टिकली इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल. अगर ए ने बी को जमीन बेची, अब बी कैसे साबित करेगा कि मेरे से जबरदस्ती खरीदी गई? दीज आर लॉलीपॉप्स, दिस इज रेटोरिक. लीगल फ्रेमवर्क इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. अगर लीगल फ्रेमवर्क नहीं है, अगर कानून पारित नहीं है, लॉलीपॉप में और रियलिटी में वो कानून बीच में आता है. सो इन चीजों के ऊपर हमें फॉर्मली काम करना पड़ेगा. और जो यंगस्टर्स हमारे हैं, there is a severe, I see even in Jammu, it pains me a lot. आज के, the generation after me, my nephews, my cousins, they're more fluent in Dogri than they are in Kashmiri. They don't encourage Kashmiri at all, because the inferiority complex hangs so over them. आज मैं देखता हूं कि कश्मीरी लड़कियां कश्मीरी लड़कों से शादी नहीं करना चाहती, and vice versa. There is something ailing, while and I somehow we feel it is something that we must focus on. We must accept there is nothing wrong in two people liking each other from different communities. It's a universal truth. Love cannot be stopped. But do our youngsters have that sense of responsibility? As elders, have we failed in inculcating that sense of responsibility towards community? We are in a unique situation. Maybe 50 years उसके बाद में सिर्फ हमारा नाम किताबों में रह जाएगा, कश्मीरी पंडित होते थे. आज हमारे पास मौका है. कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि जब हम when we are staring this, we are already extinct. सिर्फ कोई, जब मैं 80 साल का होगा, मैं नेहरू साहब से मिलूंगा, बोलूंगा अरे अच्छा आपका नाम तो नेहरू साहब है, शायद आप कश्मीर से हो. तो वो भी मुझसे कहेंगे अरे आपका नाम तो कौल है, शायद आप कश्मीर से रहे होंगे. और मैं भी ये कहूंगा हाँ मैंने सुना था, मेरे पूर्वज कहते थे कि हम कश्मीर में थे, पर मुझे पता नहीं. Before that happens in reality, I think we must take these concrete steps. Back to you, sir. If there is any other question, I'll be very happy.
No, sir. Nice of you. Very well explained, Ashish ji. I had actually listed about 5-6 questions for you, but I think you answered quite a few of them. Quickly, unless you want to add on to them, I'll just read the questions for you. The next was what your vision for socio-cultural preservation of our unique culture and literature. I think you have covered this, most of it.
And one more thing, sir. Literature से मुझे याद है, maybe I would urge you to, जो आपके mind में questions है, maybe in case I missed something, because there is so much. We are the youngest community in exile. बाकी लोगों को तो उनको 200 साल हो गए, 300 साल हो गए, but we are the youngest community on the world platform which are facing this. हमने पिछले, मुझे लगता है डिजिटल मीडियम ने हमारी कम्युनिटी को एक नई पहचान दी है. जहां ये कश्मीरी पंडित एक डरपोक कश्मीरी पंडित कहा जाता था, मेरे ख्याल से पिछले 5-6 सालों में मैंने एक शिफ्ट देखा है कि नाउ वी हैव बिकम वोकल. पहले हम बोलते ही नहीं थे, पहले हम बात ही नहीं करते, पहले हम बिल्कुल भी बात नहीं करते थे, लेकिन अब हम बात करने लगे हैं. हम में बात करने लगे हैं. इट इज नॉट इनफ. I think हम लोग कहते हैं हम intellectuals हैं. I take great pride in saying that we are the only community in the world with a name in Guinness Book of World Records for being the only community with 100% literacy rate. लेकिन हमारा literature कहाँ है? अब हम लोग फिर वही बात कर सकते हैं, हाय तौबा कि हमारा literature तो अफगानियों ने जला दिया जी, ये हो गया, वो हो गया, वो हो गया, जलाया वतनी होगी. That's not it. Whatever has happened in the past has happened. There is no technology available that can send us back and correct it. We have to move forward. I think we need to encourage. I think ये बड़ा funny part है, with no malice, refugee camp. I mean, it became the largest sold book on Kashmiri Pandits in the whole world. Now, funny part is, why I did refugee camp, because, I was discussing with one of our community people who have a publication house. उन्होंने 2 साल वो कहते रहे कि हाँ करेंगे. फिर मुझे लगा यार मैं क्यों स्टक हूं यहाँ पे. Why, if I have the resources, I have the ability to make the few calls, and I said, if I have to do it, why not do it with the largest publisher in the world, and therefore the largest publisher in the world publish refugee camp. Anyway, so what I'm saying is literature पे focus होना चाहिए. हमारे यहाँ नेहरू साहब जैसे लोग हैं या इतने सारे लोग हैं, all of you, I think we are spoiled for choice when it comes to intellect. हमारी community इतनी well positioned है कि आप एक बाकी कम्युनिटी में तो आपको ढूंढना पड़ता है. हमारे यहाँ तो मतलब बहुतात है. पॉसिबली वी टेक आवर इंटेलेक्ट फॉर ग्रांटेड. वी शुड राइट मोर. आज अभी देखिए जो जिहादिस्ट हैं, जो आतंकवादी हैं, उनके चेहरे पे सांप लौटते हैं कि भाई कश्मीरी पंडित भी बात करता है, वो जवाब देता है, वो चुप नहीं रहता है, वो फेसबुक पे जवाब देता है, वो कहता है कि आपने मारा, आप आतंकवादी हो, आपने मेरे पूर्वजों को मारा, मेरे पड़ोसियों को मारा, आप यू आर मर्डरर्स. You may be who you claim to be, but the fact is that you are murderers and you supported murder of my community. Ab Kashmiri Pandit ye kehta hai, we need to articulate this all the more. Then, and there's one more thing also. Being in public life for 26 years, sir, I've realized that communities need help. हम लोगों को acceptance करने में दिक्कत आती है कि हमको help चाहिए और help आती नहीं है. I think this needs to be a community call. कि जैसे I really appreciate. मैं आपको नेहरू साहब का ही छोटा सा एग्जांपल बता दूं. मैं नेहरू साहब को तो पर्सनली नहीं जानता था. We have never interacted on a personal level. But through my post, Nehru Sahab approached me. Ki Ashish, why don't you come and you talk to my faculty, my students, and that is how I had such a wonderful time. He was so gracious to give me a platform to put me in front of the people that were important to him. But we don't do this as a community. I think we must accept that we have a responsibility. Kashmiri Pandits usually, maybe a Kashmiri Pandit may be helpful to XYZ, but he finds it very difficult to be helpful to a Kashmiri Pandit. I think this we need to learn from other communities who have progressed as community. I think this needs to be a mandate. एक पिता अपने बच्चे को समझाए कि बेटा अगर तुमको कहीं कोई कश्मीरी पंडित मिले उसकी मदद जरूर करना. एक माँ अपनी बेटी को बताए कि अगर तुम्हें कभी कोई कश्मीरी पंडित मिले, अगर मदद कर सको तो उसकी मदद जरूर करना. I think this is something that we still are not there. These are very fine points. हमको ये सीखने को आज है. Before it is too late कि बेटा कल को बोले कि कौन कश्मीरी पंडित, जो कश्मीरी पंडित है उसको तो पता ही नहीं है कि वो कश्मीरी पंडित है. Honestly, this reminds me when I was in college in Haryana, in Panipat, we had somebody, he used to write his name as some Kumar. वो जब फाइनल ईयर में पहुंचा तो मुझे पता चला लोधी कॉलोनी का वो लड़का था, फैमिली थी, उसका पूरा नाम मुझे याद नहीं अभी. लेट्स से हिज फुल नेम वाज अजय कुमार कौल. मेरे को फाइनल ईयर में 3 साल के बाद पता चला कि अरे उल्लू के पट्टे यार, तेरा सरनेम कौल है, तूने बताया. नहीं, हम तो यूज ही नहीं करते, मेरे को तो ये पता था कि हमारा सरनेम कुमार है. So before this becomes a reality and hits everybody, I think we still have time. We have intellectuals, we have our seniors, we have our elders who have first-hand information, Khaibari Sahib, repository of so much of wealth. But all of this is gonna go away one day or the other because there is nothing. I can't log in anywhere and access my culture, my language. There are no teachers. शारदा के लिए इतना काम हुआ पिछले मेरे ख्याल से 2-3 सालों में शारदा को रिवाइव करने के लिए, पर क्या ये सस्टेन्ड है? ये सस्टेन्ड नहीं है. ये उन लोगों का पैशन है जो उसको ड्राइव कर रहे हैं. कोई भी पैशन तभी तक रहता है जब तक वो इंडिविजुअल होता है. अब ये पैशन की बात नहीं है, ये हमारे सस्टेनेंस की बात है. दिस नीड्स टू बी फॉर्मलाइज्ड. द बैटन मस्ट बी पास्ड when it comes to socio-cultural identity of Kashmiri Pandits. We are past the passion. This needs to be institutionalized now.
Ashish, so nice. Again, just quickly run through the other points which I had. I think again you have covered most of it. Political vision for KPs, commercial and economic vision. How can KPs become self-reliant? You have written about it. Do you want to add anything more, or I'll move on?
Yes, media and entertainment is a very important part, sir.
My last point was to you directly because you have been a media person. How can we harness the media in our global outreach and opinion building?
Absolutely, sir. Today, media is the single largest decisive factor in creating an issue and in seeking a resolution for that. आज देखिए क्या हम जूस के बारे में, जूस परसिक्यूशन को आज इतने 2 सदियां बीत गई, हमको पता है क्यों? We have seen, we have possibly seen films like The Schindler's List and stuff like that. Media and entertainment plays the single largest and is the lowest common denominator. किसी भी इशू को पब्लिक प्लेटफॉर्म पे डिस्कोर्स के लिए अवेलेबल करा पाना, उसके रेजोल्यूशन और उसके सॉल्यूशंस के लिए फिल्म्स बहुत बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है. हमारे यहाँ कुछ नहीं हुआ, हमने कुछ किया नहीं. क्या हमने ऐसी न्यूज, मुझे लगता है जैसे कश्मीर में एक होता था, आई थिंक समाचार पोस्ट, आई स्टिल रिमेंबर, इफ आई रिमेंबर करेक्टली, इट वाज ओन्ड बाय कश्मीरी पंडित जेंटलमैन दैट टाइम. और मैं 11वीं में था तब जब एक्सोडस हुआ था, मैं उसमें आर्टिकल लिखता था. और मेरा बड़ा एक वो था कि लाइक ऑल ऑफ अस, मोस्ट ऑफ आवर फ्रेंड्स वर मुस्लिम्स. जो दिन में इतने जिस दिन इंडिया मैच जीतता था तो हमारे घरों पे पत्थर पड़ते थे, जिस दिन इंडिया मैच हारता था तो हमारे घरों पे पत्थर पड़ते थे. So I always was traumatized that, where are we headed? And I wrote an article, and my father was summoned to the district courts कि आपके बेटे ने ऐसा कर दिया जी. We were in Anantnag. I mean, we migrated out of Anantnag, though I am from Sheetalnath Sattu, but that time my father was posted there. So ये 89 की बात है. तो एक मुझे लगता है एक कम्युनिटी का एक सिंगल माउथपीस होना चाहिए, जैसे शिवसेना का सामना है. एक हमारा ऑफिशियल माउथपीस होना चाहिए. हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारे हैं, अच्छी बात है, लेकिन इट डज नॉट, हैविंग टू मच इज एज गुड एज नॉट हैविंग एनीथिंग. Talking about so many things is as good as not talking about anything. We need to have one formal organ. और इसके लिए हमारी दिक्कत ये है, जो हमारे अगेंस्ट में भी जाता है कभी कभी, हम कहते हैं कि भाई हम लोग तो किसी को लीडर मानते ही नहीं है. अब देखिए, उसका मैं जो समझता हूं कि सरदारों में, जूस में, बाकी कम्युनिटीज में पढ़े लिखे लोग ना के बराबर थे. तो ऐसे कम्युनिटी को रैली करना बिहाइंड वन लीडर इज वेरी इजी. और रिलीजियस जैसे इस्लाम है, वो एक बात करते हैं, उनका मौलवी एक बात करता है, सारे लोग वही बात मानते हैं क्योंकि ज्यादा पढ़ाई लिखाई नहीं है. और धर्म का वैसा, हमारा बड़ा एक अलग फॉर्मेट है, बड़े हम लिबरल्स हैं, जो हमारी आज हालत है ये उसी वजह से. लेकिन हमको, मुझे लगता है, आई थिंक वी नीड टू डू अवे विद द चिप ऑन आवर शोल्डर्स. हम पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं, इसके लिए किसी दूसरे की बात आसानी से नहीं मानते. इसके लिए हमारे यहाँ लीडरशिप क्राइसिस है कि एक दूसरे की बात बड़ी आसानी से नहीं मानते, क्योंकि हम सोचते हैं, सोचने वाली कौम है. लेकिन फ्यूचर के लिए आई थिंक वी नीड टू मेक दो सैक्रिफाइसेस, वी नीड टू एक्सेप्ट लीडरशिप. और लाइक पीपल, आई थिंक मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है हमारे लिए. एक अब डिजिटल, देखिए अब खर्चे उतने नहीं होते, हम एक डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म जो एक हमारी एक वैलिडेट करके हमारा ओपिनियन ग्लोबल मीडिया को, ग्लोबल प्लेटफॉर्म पे देगा, चाहे वो न्यूज़पेपर हो, चाहे वो टीवी न्यूज चैनल हो. आई थिंक वी नीड टू मेक दीज वाइज इन्वेस्टमेंट. देखिए क्रिश्चियनिटी, आप देखिए गॉड्स नेटवर्क, ट्रिनिटी, ये दुनिया के सबसे अमीर प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं मीडिया के. मेरे ख्याल से दुनिया में शायद ही ऐसा कोई टीवी चैनल नहीं होगा जिसमें क्रिश्चियन मिशनरीज की स्ट्रॉन्ग भागीदारी नहीं है. Even your Benetton Coleman, a majority stake there is held by Christian missionary groups. इसीलिए आप देखो, कभी भी किसी अंग्रेजी अखबार में कभी भी किसी पादरी के बारे में लिखा होगा, कभी भी किसी मौलवी के बारे में लिखा होगा, लेकिन हिंदू को बदनाम करने के लिए सब जमा हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि मैंडेट नहीं है, ओनरशिप उनके पास में नहीं है. वो नाम हिंदू जरूर होगा, लेकिन उसका ओनर क्रिश्चियन होगा पीछे से. सो आई थिंक वी नीड टू रैली and create media investments, newspaper, news channel. This is the future. अगर हमको एक बात करनी है, सारी दुनिया में अपनी आवाज पहुंचानी है, इससे बड़ा कोई प्लेटफॉर्म नहीं है.
Ashish ji, one more point, if you can try and throw some light on it.
Yes,
Jammu has become sort of our headquarter after Exodus.
Yeah.
But there aren't enough jobs for youngsters. They are migrating. They continue to migrate to other parts of the country and the world. And what's left is parents and old people are left behind there. So we as a community need to look at what should be the role of Jammu and how do we ensure welfare and dignity of our elders who are left behind there. So it's becoming kind of old age place.
Yes.
It
is sad, but it is, I think this is the fact of our life. Jammu, आज जम्मू वही है जो चंडीगढ़ एक जमाने में कंसीव किया गया था, होम फॉर रिटायर्ड पीपल. अनफॉर्चुनेटली जम्मू वाज नॉट कंसीव्ड लाइक दैट, बट जम्मू इज आवर लास्ट होप. इट इज आवर लास्ट होप फॉर, एक वो कहते हैं ना कि वो तसल्ली है कि हम लोग, जैसे मैं बंबई में आपको अगर एग्जांपल दूं कि कभी कभी हम लोग यहाँ पे मूली के साग, मूली के जो पत्ते आते हैं उसको ये समझ के खा लेते हैं कि ये भी साग है. सो जम्मू हमारे लिए वो है, और जम्मू का सच क्या है मेरे ख्याल से डीप इनसाइड हम सब जानते हैं. पर जम्मू अभी भी एक आखिरी उम्मीद है. बट यस, देयर आर नो अपॉर्चुनिटीज, और कभी भी इस मुगालते में यंगस्टर्स को नहीं रहना चाहिए कि वहां कभी कोई ऐसी सरकार आएगी जो आपके लिए कुछ करेगी. ये पॉसिबल नहीं है और होगा भी नहीं. उस मुगालते में हमको नहीं रहना चाहिए. ओल्ड एज होम मुझे लगता है अब वो इट पेन्स, हम लोग उस वैल्यू सिस्टम के लोग नहीं हैं कि हम अभी भी बाकियों से अच्छे हैं कि हम अपने एल्डर्स की सेवा करते हैं और उसमें पुण्य मानते हैं, उनके चरणों में प्रताप ढूंढते हैं. लेकिन मुझे लगता है अब जैसे मेरे पेरेंट्स हैं, मैं परेशान हो जाता हूँ अपने माता पिता को बोल बोल के कि भाई अब सारी दुनिया ये बात करती है कि भाई आपका बेटा आता नहीं है वहां पे, पेंडेमिक हो गया, आप प्लीज अब बॉम्बे शिफ्ट हो जाइए चैप्टर. पर वो यहाँ आते जरूर हैं 3 दिन, चौथे दिन माय फादर इज इन वन रूम, माय मदर इज इन दी अदर, कि भाई टिकट वापस करा दो, हमको वापस जाना है. हालांकि कोई किसी से मिलता जुलता नहीं है, पर तसल्ली है कि भाई अपनी अब एक वो लास्ट रूट्स बने मुझे लगता है. बट आई थिंक वी आर पास दैट. एक हमको एज अ कम्युनिटी आई थिंक इट इज हाई टाइम दैट वी नीड टू हैव ए फॉर्मल ओल्ड एज होम. आई थिंक आवर एल्डर्स डिजर्व दैट डिग्निटी कि हम उनको जबरदस्ती अपने जो लास्ट रिलेटेबल हैबिटेट है, जम्मू इज ए रिलेटेबल हैबिटेट. हालांकि जम्मू और कश्मीर में कोई समानता नहीं है, न लैंग्वेज में, न वेदर में, न कल्चर में, न खान पान में, बट एक रिलेटिव समानता है जम्मू और कश्मीर में. हमको एक कंफर्ट मिलता है कि बस ये टनल के पार ही तो हमारा घर है. तो वो एक उम्मीद है. यहाँ बंबई से, दिल्ली से, बाकी शहरों से वो उम्मीद बहुत दूर दिखती है. पर मुझे लगता है कि हमारे एल्डर्स वो डिजर्व करते हैं वो केयर, और एक फॉर्मल एज अ कम्युनिटी आई थिंक इट इज टाइम we need to have an old age home. Old age maybe इस शब्द में शायद एक थोड़ा सा नेगेटिविज्म है, बट एक ऐसा कल्चरल प्लेस हो जहां पे हमारे एल्डर्स रह पाए, वहां पे हमारे फेस्टिवल एक यूनिक. हम लोगों में एक बड़ा आदत है कि हम लोग हर आदमी अपनी ही दिशा में चला जाता है. एवरीबडी ट्राइज टू पुल द एप्पल कार्ट इन देयर ओन डायरेक्शन. हर दूसरा आदमी दूसरी एसोसिएशन बना के बैठा हुआ है. जरूरत क्या है, होगा क्या? इट इज नॉट अ मनी मेकिंग थिंग एट ऑल. लेट्स कम टुगेदर. Let us do away with this chip on our shoulder, pool our resources together, create a platform, especially जम्मू में. अब देखिए दिक्कत कहाँ आती है जम्मू में, मैं आपको बताऊं कि मैं अभी अपने one of my nephews, he wanted to get married, तो उसकी शादी की बात चल रही थी. There was a कश्मीरी लेडी जिससे मैं बात कर रहा था. I was completely, left speechless. She asked me, अच्छा वो रहते कहाँ हैं? I said वो फ्लोरिडा में रहते. वो said नहीं, हमारी बेटी तो चाहती है कि उसका मतलब वो लड़के वाले गांधीनगर में. So, something terrible is ailing, before it goes out, because this becomes a malice, it becomes a disease, and it eats us. हमको जम्मू पे फोकस करना चाहिए. We are losing the plot in जम्मू. हमारे बच्चे ड्रग्स में जा रहे हैं, नशेखोरी में जा रहे हैं, शराबी बन गए हैं. जो वैल्यू सिस्टम हमको डिफरेंशिएट करता था, एक जम्मू का डोगरा या बाकी कम्युनिटी के लोग कहते थे अपने बच्चों को कश्मीरी पंडित से दोस्ती करो, उससे सीखो, उसके सानिध्य में रहो, हो सकता है तुम अपने जीवन में कुछ करोगे. लेकिन आज वही कश्मीरी पंडित वो सिगरेट भी फूकता है, अफीम चरस भी पीता है, शराब भी पीता है, अय्याशी भी करता है, लड़कियों के आगे पीछे भागता है. वी हैव लॉस्ट आवर वे. I think Jammu symbolically as the last bastion of hope of our socio-cultural economic system, जम्मू पे ध्यान देना चाहिए. एक फॉर्मल इकोसिस्टम वहां क्रिएट कर सकते हैं. ओल्ड एज होम बड़ी जरूरत है, क्योंकि ये फैक्ट है वहां अपॉर्चुनिटीज यंगस्टर्स के लिए नहीं है. दे हैव टू बी आउट, दे विल बी फोर्स्ड टू गो आउट. सो उनके पेरेंट्स अब क्या करेंगे? या तो आप उनको टॉर्चर करें बंबई, दिल्ली या बाकी जगहों पे लाके, या उनके लिए एक डिग्निफाइड एक प्लेटफॉर्म हम जम्मू में क्रिएट करें. हम लोग इन एनी केस घर बना रहे हैं. मैंने अपना घर बनाया अपने माता पिता के लिए सोच के कि अब, लेकिन वही घर में वो अकेले 2 बंदे रहते हैं. उसकी मेंटेनेंस करना मुश्किल हो जाता है, उसकी देखभाल करना मुश्किल हो जाता है, क्योंकि हम अभी भी जम्मू में फ्लैट्स में रहने के आदी नहीं है. हमें अपना अपना हैबिटेट चाहिए. तो एक कलेक्टिव इकोसिस्टम हो सकता है जम्मू में, जहां हम सरकार से बात कर सकते हैं कि भाई हमको 10-15 एकड़ जमीन दे दो, जहां पे हम एक इकोसिस्टम. सरकार इतने पैसे खर्च कर रही है, क्या सरकार इतना नहीं कर सकती? लॉलीपॉप देना बंद करे, कुछ एक सीड कैपिटल हमको दे दे, जहां एक ऐसा एक सोशियो कल्चरल इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम बन पाए, जहां हमारे एल्डर्स डिग्निफाइड लाइफ जी सके।
So nice of you. Thank you very much. Oh, well explained.
Ashish,
Very
Ashish,
well
but we
explained
have
with
been,
live examples.
Ashish,
Ajay, 1 second. Ajay, can you hold on? We'll keep because we need to close up. Move a bit faster.
I'll just take 1 minute. I'll just take
okay.
1 second. I just want to say, Ashish, that we already have Jagati camp in
No,
Jammu.
sir,
A lot
I'm
of
not talking
Kashmiris are
about
living in
Jagti camp.
together, you know.
Ajay, I'm not talking about Jagti camp. I'm not talking about Jagti camp. I'm talking about Jagti camp. मुझे पता है, I escalated that matter to the governor's office. वहाँ तो दवाइयाँ dispensary में नहीं होती. So I am talking about जहाँ पे dignified way में हमारे elders रह सके. Jagti is not a solution. Maybe Jagti can be transformed. Jagti में तो लोग आजकल खुद ही एक दूसरे को मरने मारने पे उतार हुए हैं. I am not talking about that. Our elders don't deserve that. मैं कह रहा हूँ कि एक इकोसिस्टम, एक ऐसी टाउनशिप जहां हमारे एल्डर्स, उनकी देखभाल हो, डॉक्टर्स हो, मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज हो, कल्चरल सिस्टम हो, वो फेस्टिवल्स इकट्ठे सेलिब्रेट कर सकें, वहां पे एक सोशियो कल्चरल सेंटर हो, वो कश्मीर की अपनी पुरानी जो हमारी जो एनेक्डोट्स थे वो शेयर कर सकें, कश्मीर की फिल्में हम लोग नहीं बनाते अब कश्मीरी लैंग्वेज में। मेरे ख्याल से पिछले 40 साल में हब्बा खातून के बगैर बाद में कौन सी कश्मीरी लैंग्वेज में फिल्म बनी? हम बातें जरूर करते हैं, हमारे पास टैलेंट है, हमारे पास रिसोर्सेज है, पर हम इकट्ठे कभी नहीं आएंगे। दिक्कत खाली वही है। अजय, तुम्हारी अपनी कंपनी है बॉम्बे में, मुझे बताओ, यू बीन इन मीडिया, यू वर विद सहारा, हमने कितना कर लिया? मुझे पता है मेरे को कितना एफर्ट लगा जी कश्मीर लॉन्च करने के लिए। आई फॉट लिटरली विद द होल सिस्टम कि मुझे एक चैनल दे दो कश्मीरी के लिए, लेकिन वो मिल नहीं पाया। बट स्टिल आई फॉट कि जी पंजाबी में मैंने वो एक बैंड क्रिएट कर दिया जी कश्मीर का 2 घंटे का, सारी दुनिया से उसकी व्यूअरशिप आती थी। पर आज उसकी जरूरत है, तो हमें ये सारी चीजें हमारे एल्डर्स डिजर्व करते हैं यार। वो जगती, मुझे नहीं लगता जगती सोल्यूशन नहीं है। जगती हैज बिकम अ पॉलिटिकल सेंटर, ऑफन मिसयूज्ड, ऑफ द टैंजेंट, लड़ना मरना वहां ज्यादा होता है, जो मैं देखता रहता हूँ। इट इज सो डिस्टर्बिंग टू सी दोज वीडियोस दैट कम आउट ऑफ जगती। यू नो, वी हैव फॉलन टू द लेवल वेयर यू नो वी गेट फिजिकल विद आवर एल्डर्स। लोग एक दूसरे के साथ लड़ाई, गाली गलौज कितना करते हैं। कहाँ कश्मीरी पंडित के मुंह से शब्द निकलता था वो जेम होता था, नपा तुला शब्द निकलता था कश्मीरी पंडित के नाम से।
There were times saying, आशीष, की जब जगती में ये सब हो रहा है तो अलग से बना करके अलग से वहां पर भी ये सब होगा।
जगती में आपकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है, जगती आपको फ्री में मिला, इसके लिए आप उसको अब्यूज कर रहे हो। जब आप अपना पैसा लगाओगे, जब अपनी एफर्ट लगाओगे, तब आप ऐसा नहीं, अपने घर को आप साफ रखते हो, अपने घर का बाथरूम साफ रखते हो, लेकिन ट्रेन का बाथरूम गंदा करते हो, वहीं पे थूकते भी हो। क्यों? क्योंकि वो फ्री में है, उसमें कोई जिम्मेवारी आपकी नहीं है। हम पार्क में जाके थूकते हैं, अपने घर के आंगन में थूकते हैं नहीं, क्योंकि हमको साफ करना पड़ता है। This should be a professionally managed old age home for our elders, which will have everything.
Thank you, Ashish ji. Thank you very much. Very well explained with real life examples. I would request you and Raj and Khabri Saab to hold on for a minute because we'll check whether there are any questions from viewers. And I request Ajay Dhar and Sharika ji to just look at the questions. Anybody has a question can put it in the chat box. And in a minute, I'll summarize the whole thing and then we will look at if there are any questions. Okay. So if we look at things, what happened, this was the 7th Exodus, but it was the first in free, democratic and secular India. We looked at the causes. It may have started with the export of Wahhabism. Then the Ghazwa Hind strategy or partition was the other cause. Ghazwa Hind strategy, 1,000 cuts. There was other two aspects which aided the rise of terrorism. One was, I would think, breakup of Soviet Union and the Russia quitting Afghanistan. The other factor which actually led to 1990 and thereafter, well, it would have anyway happened, but the point is what expedited it was that time. At that time, we had the weakest government in the center and also almost a non-government at the state. So it was a free hand for this doctrine which were unleashed from Pakistan. The government of India needs to learn a lesson to prevent mini Kashmirs emerging in other places, which is a possibility as of now. And therefore, I think government of India needs to act. If you look at the present status from various estimates, I've checked the total number of Kashmiris, KPs or Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir as of now from various categories, including prime ministers, job quota do not exceed 10 or 12,000. That's the number from all accounts added up together. We also have some changes taking place. Article 35A, 3370 have been done and dusted. They are a piece of history. So that is a big change. At least the mind block is gone. The Abdullahs and Muftis and the Hurriyat have become sort of irrelevant for the time being. There have been some legislations with respect to domicile, resettlement, and migrant properties. There is some change in the mentality of the Kashmiris. One also notices that the narrative of Kashmir has changed. The voice of KPs is getting heard throughout the world, and credit goes to our writers, movie makers. We need to watch out for a movie which is getting released next month, Kashmir Files. It has made waves in the USA and Europe. Then various associations and various diasporas also contributing to the world opinion. Now, but we still need to look at future. There are some other points which I have listed here, and other than what is already recorded, we need to highlight and promote KPs as the aborigines of Kashmir, which is highlight the aboriginal culture. We need to promote historical greatness of Lalitaditya Empire, Sharda Peeth, Kashmir Shaivism, and so on. There's so much. Ashish ji mentioned about keeping a record of our library literature. I mean, we have a plan to have a library for Kashmiri literature in our KP Sharda Sadan in Kharghar, but it will take a few years. Then we need to get the migration of KPs to be recognized as genocide. Justice needs to be done to KPs through fast track courts. The acts of terror punishment, as long as the perpetrators of crimes are not punished, no justice is done. We still find the perpetrators living freely. Protection of KP shrines needs to be ensured. Protection of KP properties, which were sold under duress after 90 to be declared null and void. We do not want the perpetrators of crime to profit from properties of the victims. Minority rights for KPs in Kashmir. There's other point which again which correlates with what Ashish was saying. The story of KP exodus should become part of history, part of museum. It should get merged with, there have been Hindu exoduses in India for last 600-700 years. There is no museum on that. So it needs to all combine into a, there should be a museum highlighting 7 exoduses of KPs and or genocides of KPs in the last 700 years. And this could become an overall part of Hindu genocide during the Islamic invasions and rule. There are some of our associates who have talked about why can't there be an Israel kind of settlement? If Jews could do it, why not KPs? Then again, for our future, we need to see that, yes, our people, our children who mostly focus on doing MBBS or engineering and MBAs, not many of our children go into administrative services or into media or into law, because these are all power centers in the democracy. We are a small number community. We don't have vote banks, but we can harness on the power of media, on the power of administrative services, power of legal, and power of commercial. Not many of our children I have seen study commerce. The commerce and economic power. These are powers which can be of use for future. So with that, I will conclude, and I request Ajay ji, whether there are any questions, we can request our panelists to come forward if there are.
Krishnan ji, there is one point that I forgot. I just wanted to add here. As I was saying that, too many people talking about too many things is as good as nobody saying anything. It does not get registered. और हमारे साथ में ये दिक्कत आती है कि people don't take us seriously. क्यों? क्योंकि हम अगर 36 लोग हैं तो 36 एसोसिएशंस हैं और 36 अलग-अलग तरीके में करते हैं. मुझे लगता है कि एक यूनिफाइड आवाज को दुनिया भी सीरियसली लेती है. हमारे में अब जैसे मुझे याद है महबूबा मुफ्ती ने एक बारी बोला कि यार कश्मीरी पंडितों का क्या है, जितने लोग आते हैं उतने डेलीगेशन उतने मेमोरेंडम लेके आते हैं. आई डू नॉट नो हु टू टॉक टू. सो बेसिकली वी आर इरेलेवेंट. सो अगर हम यूनिफाइड बात करेंगे, जैसा मैं कहता हूं कि यूनिफाइड, अब जैसे हेग है या हमारे जो फ्रांस में है, हेग में है, वर्ल्ड कमीशंस हैं, कैन वी नॉट नॉमिनेट a few people, maybe suppose, can we not nominate a Raji to as the leader, as a representative of the community, and place on record at Hague कि हमारे साथ ये हुआ. हमारी दिक्कत ये है कि लोग ऐसे देखा जाए तो 7 लाख लोग हैं, लेकिन 7 लाख लोग 7 लाख बातें करते हैं. ये 7 लाख लोग को एक बात करनी चाहिए. हमारे ही अपने लोग हैं. मैं I was with a group of very senior in government politicians. They said, यार आशीष जी, सब ठीक है, नाइसिसिटीज को छोड़ देते हैं. यार आपके अपने ही लोग तो बोलते हैं यार हम ही जिम्मेदार हैं, हमने ही मुसलमानों के साथ में छुआछूत की, हम ही उनको परसिक्यूट करते थे. ये आपकी इन जो गवर्नमेंट इन पोजीशन है उसके सीनियर लीडर्स को ये इंप्रेशन है. और किसने दिया? मैंने पूछा किसने बताया? बोला आप ही के लोग तो बताते हैं, हमको कहां से पता आएगा, वी आर नॉट कश्मीरीज, आप ही के लोग बताते. सो आई थिंक दीज आर, ये यूनिफाइड विजन होना बड़ा जरूरी है. लेट अस नॉमिनेट सम पीपल, एक वॉइस, एक वर्ड, जैसा हम कहते हैं एक निशान, वो एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, एक आवाज, एक झंडा. सेम कश्मीरी पंडित को फॉलो करना चाहिए. दुनिया में आवाज ली जाइए. 36 लोग अलग अलग अपने एफर्ट्स कर सकते हैं, लेकिन ग्लोबल प्लेटफॉर्म को एड्रेस करने के लिए एक आवाज होना बड़ा जरूरी.
Perfect. Very well said. Yes, there have been proposals in the Delimitation Commission for some nominations in the Parliament or Assembly, or I think I saw a chat, or in the chat also somebody has commented we should have a nomination in the Parliament. Okay, Ajay, do we have any questions?
There are no questions as such, but there are quite a few comments. But before that, I would like to thank our esteemed speakers for joining us to commemorate the Exodus Day and bringing out some very pertinent points leading to our Exodus. Shibanji took us back to days when Mayhem started, and in fact, I was one of the spectators during that time in Kashmir, because I left Kashmir in the first week of April 1990. So those 3 or 4 months, what the small community which was left behind in Srinagar had to go through, I was a part of it, and in fact, I was literally saved on quite a few occasions just by the nick of time. There was bomb blasts, or there was firing from different sides. So Shibanji took us back to days when Mayhem started, and I would like to thank Raj Nehru ji for rightly mentioning that 19th January did not start on 19th January. It started way back, and in fact, we all have been paying a sort of a closing our eyes to all the arms and ammunition which has been coming into Kashmir Valley right from 47. There are people who knew it, that arms and ammunition is coming into Kashmir, but they just close their eyes and they did not pay any heed to it. Ashish ji rightly pointed out that we need to preserve our culture, language, etc. Exodus has literally finished our culture. And as Kishan ji has rightly just now mentioned, that we are trying to do something. I mean, the KPA Mumbai is trying to do something about it. We are going to set up the Sharda Gallery of Art and Culture at our Sharda Satan in Mumbai, Kharghar. So we are working for it. But only thing is that yes, it is going to take a few years. It may not happen overnight. Some of the comments I would like to read. There is one comment from Dr. Shailesh Raina. Thank you, Shibanji, for an excellent talk. I agree. We have to go back to Kashmir to show our presence. Believe me, we have a very effective LG in Mr. Manoj Sinha. Deepest regards. There is one comment from Jai Prakash Bijoria. Hindus in Kashmir, Hindus in India in general, Kashmiri Hindus plight in particular, have been miserably overlooked, rather tortured and divided systematically by pseudo-secularists for appeasing one barbaric religion, that is Islam. It is hard fact, while all other countries, minorities fight to get equal rights to majority, India's majority Hindus have always been fighting to get equal rights like minorities. He has again added that one piece of thought: all Hindus in Kashmir got massacred, but Kashmiri Pandit's word was used, which was also used too. However, educational system systematically blamed Brahmins for Hindus' problems. The point I want to communicate, that Pandit or Brahmin word was systematically seeded as bad in general Indian mind. Thank God present government has come out with new education system, and surely after a decade, new generations will know our culture and will be proud of it. I don't really know, because when we talk about the present generations, that means my generation, which is say 50 and 75. Possibly they know about this exodus, and because it has been etched in our memories. But if we talk about the present generation, which is say till 30 years, they have no idea what exactly has happened in Kashmir, and what the people, what their families, what their family members had to go through. There is one comment from Nirja Mattu, very pertinent question. Thanks, Nehruji, for sharing your thoughts. There is one comment from Bharat Waklu. ICWAT is an attempt to create a social cultural ecosystem and a repository. Bharat Waklu also adds that yes, the legal route is a powerful way to bring out a change in Kashmir. There's one comment from Nirja Mattu. Yes, the need of an hour is the documentation of our history and have a federation to have representative from all states to advocate the cause of policymakers. There is one point here from Bharat Waklu again. There is just one catch: Kashmiri Pandits without a strong connect with our sacred geography. The land of Devi Sharda is incomplete. Ashish, can you?
Ajay,
Yeah.
Sorry, you have some more, or you done?
Yeah, I'm just going through it. I'm just seeing that whether
Okay.
there is any.
Because there's one
comment.
there is one comment I have received on the sideline, which I will read out, very pertinent. Probably it says Kashmir J&K must become more pluralistic, diverse, and cosmopolitan. With 370 gone, 35A gone, Domicile Act, Migrant Properties Act. This is likely. Demography in Kashmir might change. And KPs need to, in that change scenario, engage with the local population, civil society. Confidence building measures should be in place. Sooner or later, KPs will return to Kashmir.
Let's hope so. And there is one comment from Vineet Kaul. As per RTI response from government, terrorists killed 1724 people in J&K over 31 years, of which 89 only are Kashmiri. But that is not true, because there is a list of somewhere about 700 or 800 Kashmiris which have been killed during this period. So there is one comment from SP Kachru. Kudos Ashishji for distinct thought of creating a repository, hence preservation and propagation of our socio-cultural identity rather than the geographical Kashmir fixation. Vimal Waklu has written that Ashish has covered some important factors for preservation of Kashmiri Pandit culture. Revive Kashmiri language besides the Kashmiri festival and rituals. However, the most important factor responsible for saving Kashmiri KP culture or Kashmiri Pandit culture, and that is marriages. If at all, the KPs who left Kashmir 100 years back and are in MP and UP have lost their language, but have still maintained their culture because they are particular about getting married within the community. Most of our children are getting married outside the community. After sometimes the gap will be so wide that saving KP culture will be a great real challenge. Vineet Kaul again writes, in 2017, the SC of India dismissed a plea by KP to form an SIT to probe atrocities. However, as you know, today, with just a small threat, immediate steps are taken by Supreme Court. Everybody has appreciated the inputs given by the three speakers. I think that is what
is. I think has Mr. Moti Kaul joined? Do we have? Because I can't see it. I can't find him. So I don't know if he has joined. Moti ji, are you there?
No, I can't see him. I can't see him.
I can't see him either. It's okay.
I can't see him.
Okay. So no questions. I think then
he has left. He had come.
Okay. Oh, I missed him. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks all the participants. Thank you very much, speakers.
Krishan ji, sorry, it just occurred to me. Just
yes,
one
please.
last thing. I was as I was advocating जो socio-cultural economic जो मैं उसकी बात कर रहा हूँ कि एक formal infrastructure चाहिए, एक judicial commission आपको कभी नहीं मिलेगा. वो judicial commission तभी मिलता है when you are relevant to a certain political party. We are not relevant. हमने कभी अपने आप को relevant नहीं बना. But as I was saying, देखो हमारे पास हमारी community के पास क्या चीज नहीं है, सब कुछ है. क्या हमारी कम्युनिटी में जजेस नहीं है जो आज रिटायर्ड है? कैन वी नॉट मेक अ बिगिनिंग, लेट्स से फ्रॉम दिल्ली और फ्रॉम बॉम्बे, जो हमारी एसोसिएशंस है, लेट अस कॉन्स्टिट्यूट अ बेंच जिसमें रिटायर्ड जजेस हों. Let us create some space for these people and let us start, let people go there. Suppose if I am there, you have a desk here in Bombay, I will go and I will dispose. I will say this is what happened to me and my family. Let it be on record. We have judges in the community, we have lawyers in the community, we have important people in the community. हम लोग, आपको सुप्रीम कोर्ट, अरे सर 84 के दंगे सुप्रीम कोर्ट को याद हैं, लेकिन 32 साल पहले की चीज सुप्रीम कोर्ट को याद. देखिए, ये आपको ये इससे ये पता चलता है कि वी आर नॉट रेलेवेंट. लॉलीपॉप के लिए रेलेवेंट है. आपको जब आपको वो वाहवाही चाहिए तो कश्मीरी पंडित आपको चाहिए, अदरवाइज आपको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, वही लॉलीपॉप मिलेगा. सो सॉरी. So let us do it ourselves, and maybe we can, gather some steam as we go along.
Yes, good. Actually, I have noticed certain change because earlier we had no voice. But in the last few years, I have noticed that voice is getting heard. I think I said it probably earlier also, that through various diasporas, associations, there is some representation somewhere. Noise getting created. People are in positions where they can make an impact, and that's happening. So therefore, that has to continue, yes. And then we can move into a stage of activism. When this exodus happened in 90, nobody noticed. None of the associations, the world media, Indian media, there was absolutely no notice. It's getting noticed now after 32 years. So that is a probably sign of change.
Yes.
Okay, so I once again thanks a lot, Shiban Khaibri ji, Raj Nehru ji, and Ashish. You are here in Bombay, so we hope to interact with you much more. I have requested Ashish to join our meetings once in a while, and we need to interact. And I want Ashwini Bhatt, our host for today, without whom this event would not have been possible. Where is he? Can you come on screen, please?
He's already there.
He's already.
I can't see
He's
him.
already there.
He needs to be on the screen.
I'm
one of
there,
the speakers. Say a few words so you'll be visible as a speaker. So thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. Yeah.
And once again, thanks to all the participants who made it a very lovely evening. A lot of people had joined in and a lot of comments, very positive, fruitful, and a lot of things to act on. And let's hope we moved one step at a time. I think I still have somebody who wants to admit now. We have come to the close of the program. So anyway, I'm admitting. Okay, so thank you very much. So we call it a day.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for organizing.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you
All
very
the
much.
best. All the best.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
Thank you very much.